Welcome to Fair Game. I'm Kristine Leahy. My guest today is one of the most decorated fighters in the history of MMA, a six-time UFC champion, an action movie star, and a commentator for the Professional Fighters League. Randy Couture, it is so good to meet you.
Thanks. You as well.
So when you walk into a room, are you still like automatically looking around and thinking, okay, I am the toughest guy in here?
No, but I am definitely looking for the exit. You want to know where your escape routes are and how.
Why? You're the guy who can handle any situation.
A good run is better than a bad stand any day of the week.
So you walked in here and you looked for an escape route?
Well, I know where the escape, I can see an exit right there and I know the door I came in. So if I had to get out of here, I know I could get out of here.
I feel like I should be honored. Are you scared of me?
No,
okay,
not at
you
all.
shouldn't be. I'm not scary.
Not I just think you have to be aware.
I'm going to use that strategy too. Look for the exits. So you've had one of the most successful careers in all of UFC, and it's so interesting to me that you didn't start it until you were 33 years old.
Yeah.
Why at 33 are you deciding this is your path?
I mean, it's when I got exposed to the sport. I saw other guys I knew from the wrestling world because I'd spent most of my life as a wrestler. Mark Coleman, Don Fry. Don Fry was a cowboy at Oklahoma State. His senior year was my freshman year. And so when I saw a video of him and Mark both competing in this sport, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. It's really cool, and was intrigued and interested. And then obviously things were a little different back then. You filled out an application, sent it in, and that's kind of how you got in. And they immediately, of course, put me off. They're like, oh, you're another wrestler. We've got enough wrestlers. We'll put you on our alternate list, though. So it was about, I guess, 6 or 8 months later when they were looking for somebody to fill a spot in the tournament that I got the call. And the rest is history, I suppose.
So before you went into UFC, you were a sergeant in the Army? Mm-hmm. Did you learn anything in the Army that prepared you or helped you, gave you an edge for UFC?
I think so. I was obviously 19 to 25 years old. It was a formative time in my life. I think I look at the world in a particular way, an attention to detail. I think that 6 years I spent in the Army wearing that uniform and wrestling, representing the Army. I was an alternate on the 80 Olympic team as a soldier. I learned or gained the confidence that I could compete at that level. I'm not sure I had that before then.
The confidence.
Yeah, the confidence to recognize, I'd never been even in a national competition of any sort up to that point. So that was my first walk onto a national stage or an international stage. And so that was all new and foreign to me, and I don't think I really had the confidence in myself to succeed until that time in the Army.
It's interesting to hear you say that, considering obviously the career that you went on and had, so that confidence obviously worked, to the point where you lasted from UFC 13 to 129, which is crazy. It's crazy for me to say. Is it crazy for you to hear?
I've never heard anybody say that, so that's interesting, yeah.
I mean, when I say that, though, for you, what is that?
It was 14 years of my life, for sure, and an amazing 14 years. Entered on a whim, just thought it looked like fun and something I had to try, and then left my coaching job to pursue and be a fighter full time. And it had its ups and downs for sure, but it's been a blast. Did
you ever think when you were going into it or when you first started that you would become a legend in UFC?
No, never entered my mind. No.
When did it hit you that maybe you were going to be?
I never really looked at it in those terms. I mean, I didn't care to be famous. I wasn't trying, you're out to be the best at something. I was more interested in being the best at that. I wanted to be the best wrestler on the planet. I felt, I came up short, but I think I learned a ton and loved the sport. And it led me to MMA, and when I started MMA, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to be the best at it, and wasn't worried about the rest of that stuff. The rest of that stuff kind of takes care of itself.
Speaking of the best at it, you and Chuck Liddell, some legendary fights. You fought him 3 times for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. Yep. What was it about your fights together that were so special?
I think a lot of it was timing. The sport was just starting to really blossom and be accepted as a mainstream legitimate sport. I think before that we were looked at as crazy, as some fringe crazy sport that these guys are doing. And I think because of the Ultimate Fighter and the timing of the whole thing in the second fight with Chuck, after things exploded, it became a different animal. And so I think in a lot of ways we're synonymous because of the trilogy and those fights with the explosion of the sport through, Spike TV and The Ultimate Fighter and all the things that were going on at that time.
Also, Tito Ortiz, you guys had a very, very big fight, and we actually had him on the show recently, and he talked more about you making him cry, and he said even when he went back into the shower, he was crying because of everything that happened.
Yeah, well, Tito's a very emotional fighter. I think that's one of the things that drives him talking and doing the things that he does, because that's how he's centered that way. And so he needs to kind of create that animosity and that thing to go out and do his job, to go out and do the things he trained to do. And I'm sure that he was confident he had what it took to beat me, and it just happened to be my night that night. And that can be a devastating thing.
When you hear that you made a grown man who's very tough cry, what?
I don't know. I don't, you never look at it that way.
You don't look at it that way.
I was there, I saw, I knew what was happening, and I've been in that situation a few times myself too. Losing in the Olympic trials twice, pretty devastated on both those occasions. The NCAA finals, lost in the finals twice. Pretty devastated on both those occasions. So I suffered some losses, and certainly in MMA, I have a 19-11 record.
Yeah.
I lost plenty of times. It's never fun, but you have to use that as motivation, use that fire to go and do your best to make sure it doesn't happen again.
So you feel for him?
Sure.
Yeah.
I have empathy for that situation. I know his warrior spirit. I know what he brought into that, and it always sucks to lose.
Okay, but you literally spanked him. Literally spanked
That
him.
was one of those things you could have never predicted.
Why did you do that?
It just one of those things. I ended up in this weird situation, and 30 seconds left in the fight. He's trying to secure a knee bar, a submission, which I had countered, but couldn't get my foot away. And I'm holding his feet, sitting there. I couldn't go anywhere because he's hanging onto my leg, and it just popped into my head.
To spank him.
So I did it.
Was that a first for you?
Absolutely, first and only.
That was the only time that you did that?
Yes.
How did you guys become good friends after all of that?
Well, we were friends from the wrestling world before that.
Okay.
The wrestling world is another very kind of small, unique world. And then after that fight, he came up and was part of my training camp for, I think it was a Belfort, the second Belfort fight, or it might have been the third Liddell fight. I can't remember which one, but he came up to Roseville, California, where I was doing my camp, and he was a great workout partner. It wasn't about him. What do you need? What do you need me to do? What do you need me to mimic? What's your game? He was just a great workout partner, big physical guy, great wrestling back. He was perfect for me in that moment. And I really got to spend 3 weeks getting to know the real Tito Ortiz, not the guy that's on the camera, talking smack and doing the things that he did to promote himself, but the real guy.
There's a lot to him.
Yeah, he's a very nice guy. I really appreciated that, him being there and a great body for me in that moment, and I think that's where we got to really kind of know each other.
Check out our YouTube channel, FairGame on FS1 to catch all the best highlights of our show, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode.